Hi friends and subscribers, tech fans, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Daniel Rosell. This channel is called Daniel's Tech World. So in the year 2024, the cloud is really old hat. Minus the few diehards who are still running their own cloud instances, if that's still a thing. Most of us rely on a few or many consumer cloud applications to keep our digital lives going. I've personally been a huge fan of Google Workspace since way back when it was known as Google Apps, which is really dating myself. For those of us old enough to remember, that was before it was rebranded G Suite. I use Gmail as my online email client. I use Google Photos as a weird kind of mutant organizational system that it was absolutely never intended to be and should not be used. I use Google Drive to store all my documents, YouTube to store the videos I upload to YouTube, Google Calendars to keep track of all my appointments, and those are just the services that sprung to mind while I'm writing this. And I would suggest that this is by no means extraordinary. I'm just your typical internet user in the year 2024. While all this cloud commuting is amazing and highly convenient, it also creates an awful lot of dependency on the cloud service providers. If you create data in the cloud, say you create a Google Doc, then there's a very high probability that that's going to be your only copy of that information. And if it's important information, then from a data management standpoint, that's actually a very problematic situation. 3-2-1 is a famous rule of thumb in the backup community, which I've talked about probably 100 times. To de-risk the storing of data, it's recommended that you always retain 3 copies of that data on 2 different file systems, one of which is located off-site, which basically just means somewhere geographically separate from your main data store. This way, if your dog eats through your CD collection, your NAS blows up, or the apocalypse strikes, then your data will have a slightly better chance of survival. But wait a second, when we're talking about storing our data in the cloud, what exactly is the risk, I hear you ask? Well, there's a well-known saying in the tech community that's especially popular among jaded cynics like me, and it's this: the cloud is just somebody else's computer. But really, what we think of as the cloud is really just a server farm managed by Google or Microsoft or Oracle, somewhere in the great forlorn. If you have an old laptop lying around and you know how to set up port forwarding on your router, then you can even run your own cloud from your mother's basement. It's really that easy. The cloud is great and convenient, but it doesn't automatically ensure security. As something of a long-term backup geek, I personally back up whatever data I deem to be important enough. My YouTube videos get copied onto an obscure form of optical storage called the M-Disk with 2 optical libraries located on different continents. I back up my operating system also because I have a really bad habit of totally breaking Linux machines whenever I get a bit too enthusiastic about tinkering with them. And yes, I also attempt to back up as much of my cloud data as I possibly can. But why back up the cloud, you might be wondering? Well, the first reason is that whoever you're depending upon for cloud storage isn't the kind of benevolent computer lord in the sky thingy with the promise to always maintain your data that you might think it is. Many SaaS providers have inactivity systems whereby if you forget to log in for a certain amount of time, they'll flag your account as inactive and they will just wipe your data. Like many internet users today, you may also be paying to keep your SaaS data going through subscription services. I've heard cases of credit cards expiring, the notification emails going to spam, and then the people finding out when it's too late that their data was deleted. If you move on from this earthly existence, then what happens to your data is sort of a big unknown because cloud data hasn't really been around for all that long in the grand scheme of human history. Some cloud providers have instituted succession procedures designed especially for this scenario, but most have not. There are other ways in which the precious data you come into the cloud can be destroyed. One of these is called accidental deletion. It's basically human error. I personally once witnessed an old manager delete the entire company file system, which was hosted on Google Drive. Not only did she delete the file system, she also deleted the files from the recycle bin. And here's news for you. If you do that, Google doesn't have a magical system for bringing the data back. It's just gone. Fortunately, this story had a happy ending. The CTO was a like-minded backup fiend and had thought to back up the Google Drive onto his laptop, from which we were able to restore the company's file server. But if it wasn't for that good fortune and the presence of somebody who didn't automatically trust the cloud, the company would literally have lost all of its data, including patent applications being drafted, product schematics that took hundreds of hours of work, all at the press of just a few buttons, potentially millions of dollars worth of IP. Another risk to cloud data that people tend to not think about is ransomware. It's possible for ransomware to propagate from the local environment, like your computer, up to the cloud through very commonly used sync clients. And whatever data it attacks, ransomware is not fun to deal with. Increasingly, cloud data stores are interconnected through API integrations. Think about integration between, say, Google Calendar and Calendly. While like most benefits of cloud computing, this is very helpful and convenient, it also creates another risk. If a SaaS tool you've integrated with has read-write access over your main cloud file system, if it gets hacked, then yes, your data can be destroyed. Even security systems can present risks. Two-factor authentication, as we all know, is a very important tool for securing your online storage. However, it also creates another mechanism through which users can lose access to their cloud data. I've heard of cases in which users never downloaded those backup codes you're supposed to download, and then they lost access to the software authentication app. For example, their phone fell into a river. In situations like these, it's again entirely credible that you could find yourself locked out of all your cloud data. So what I'm trying to say is this. While it might sound like a conspiracy hat theory to say that you're worried about your data stored in Google, or to proactively try to think of ways to ensure that it's duplicated, it's actually not that crazy. Perhaps every conspiracy theory says exactly this, but I'm going to stick with that line. Enterprises know this and regularly back up their cloud data onto things like on-premises tape libraries. But unfortunately, in the world of consumer tech, the technology has been a little slow to catch up, and the tools available to consumers to back up their own cloud data are inconsistent and minimal, to put it kindly. Mostly because the vast majority of people think that the cloud means automatic safety when it comes to storing and protecting data. So what's the answer, or at least my suggestions? Well, there are only imperfect solutions, but I can tell you what I personally do. Every 3 months I order a pull down of my cloud data stored in Google using a product called Google Takeout. This is a really bad way to back up, but I think it's better than not backing up at all. I say that it's bad because it's a full backup, which means storing the same backup data every time you run the backup. Smarter ways of backing up file systems called incremental and differential backups have been around for ages in enterprise tech, but unfortunately Google doesn't provide any way of using them in conjunction with, say, your inbox data. I also back up and archive what I call my small pockets of cloud data. I usually do this twice a year or so, but I think that doing this annually would probably be sufficient. This involves using whatever export tools are available to extract my data from Twitter, Reddit, LinkedIn, Facebook, Medium, my accounting software, and wherever else I've committed data that I wouldn't want to lose. This is a really imperfect system and often requires filing GDPR data liberation requests just to pull my own data out of some cloud. But hey, it's what we've got and it sort of gets the job done, or at least gets the data out. I back up this data onto a weird form of optical storage, remember CDs, called the M-Disk, which looks like a CD but is actually a 25GB Blu-ray that's been modified for archival data storage, and it's supposed to retain whatever is stored on it for up to 1000 years. If you want to know more about the M-Disk, I seem to have created more videos about it than anybody else on YouTube, so just put in that keyword and you'll probably find me talking about it. But that's not prescriptive advice, and backing up onto an imperfect storage medium, let's say a pen drive, is still a lot better than not backing up at all. All this, of course, involves a little bit of organization, so I set up calendar reminders to do this periodically, which is kind of ironic because I'm creating cloud data to back up cloud data. It's an imperfect approach, and it would be far preferable if this were somehow automated or automatable, but for now I figure, hey, it's better than not doing it. Do you back up your cloud data? Do you have a better system than I do? I'm all ears and would love to hear your suggestions. Until next time, thanks for watching.